Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 112th episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. Today, I am back doing a request from my boy Marlon Bellamy. As always, thanks so much for being a good friend to the channel. Your support means a lot, bro. He requested one that I feel is an important movie, a movie with complex themes in a post racial America, a movie that I believe every watcher views differently. Everyone feels differently about race in the country, and everyone I've ever talked to about this movie has a different opinion on it and what it represents. Now, I'll get into my own personal opinions a little bit in this. After watching this again, I really struggled to find a narrative I wanted to run with this review. Because this movie says so much about us as a society, how we view each other, how the racial food chain is viewed, what values we find in others, and ways to use them. Some can see this as a simple movie about interracial dating and race relations, but I felt it was much deeper than that. The movie we are going to talk about today is Get Out 2017, directed by Jordan Peele in his directorial debut. First thing, who would have thought that the goofy guy from Key and Peele had this much talent outside of comedy? I mean, what a screenplay, what direction. I was appalled at how well this movie was made. It received a lot of attention before it even came out, just by what it was about. A horror movie about a black dude going to his white girlfriend's parents' house for the first time is always going to be intriguing. Because let's face it, race is always taboo, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, and none get more attention than a black and a white one. This film tries to tackle some hard and uncomfortable questions about race relations and how race feels about one another. Some things that both sides have gotten upset about over this movie, and I'm going to point them out. Now, I'm going to try and handle the subject matter here with maturity and neutrality. When I discuss feelings, I'm going to be referring to conversations I've had with people, things that I've read, and the tones and vibes I picked up from years of experience on this planet. Because, whatever color you are, I know one thing is true about you. You are human, and human nature is human nature. Now, I'm going to be discussing the themes, and with that, I'll be spoiling some of the movie. So if you haven't seen this, come back after you watch it. But who hasn't seen this by now? Like and subscribe, guys. It really helps me out. I'm trying to hit 700 subscribers by the spring. Follow me on Letterboxd. It's linked down below. So let's get into Get Out. Now, I saw this movie when it came out, and man, it was a crazy experience. Since then, I got it on Blu ray and I've seen it a few times, and every time I watch it, I feel differently about what it represents. One question I always come away with is this how Jordan Peele feels that blacks and whites see each other? With him being an older biracial man, I'm sure he's endured some strange reactions from people and have heard some things that I'm sure have stuck with him his whole life. Obviously, so much so to the point that he wanted to make his first movie about this. A movie that highlights a lot of fears and prejudice when it comes to race relations. And he's not being subtle about it, and I think that's where the strength in the writing is. This feels like a scenario that could actually exist without all the horror and sci fi elements, of course. They play into the stereotypes without actually being them. The black people in this movie are regular people, not stereotypes a lot of people like to think of them as. And the white people doing the crazy stuff aren't these right wing, hardcore conservatives or backwoods rednecks. They're neoliberals with high paying jobs and modern viewpoints. I think that's the beauty of the characters. They're unpredictable in their thoughts because of this. Both sides are trusting of each other to a point while still having the inevitable preconceived notions. I think Jordan Peele himself, being biracial and being able to relate to both sides, was maybe the perfect guy to write this. No one side's thoughts are more exaggerated than the others. Because although you may think the white people's thoughts on the blacks in this movie are more extreme, they aren't. They're just more upfront. Let's just address the overarching theme of the entire movie. Both sides, black and white, have inherent love, admiration, resentment, and fear of each other. Now, I'm sure a lot of people may have an issue with what I just said, but I'm going to be honest about my thoughts in this review, and I will do my best to support my claims. Now, I'm not saying that every black or white person feels that way, just the characters in this particular movie and situation. Because, sorry, Some people just don't think or care about the other side, either way or the other. So this movie stars Daniel Kaluuya and Allison Williams as the couple. Daniel was incredible in this, picked himself up an Oscar nom. Now, I like the casting here. Two of the most regular versions of the races represented you can get. Neither one of them fit into any stereotypes. Chris is an intelligent photographer who lives in a nice life in the city. He and Rose have been dating for 4 months and things seem great. Now, some people take issue with biracial relationships, but their relationship in the beginning seems motiveless and based on pure attraction and connection, which in my eyes should be the basis of any relationship regardless of your background. Everything is cool until we meet the parents. Now, let me take 1 second to say, I know I'm talking about the race aspect of it in this a lot because, let's face it, that's the crutch of the film. But the suspense building and thriller aspect of the film is very good as well. When we meet the parents, the suspense just grows from there. The movie feels bleak at all times, not much light filtered through. At least I felt that way. When you meet the help, things really feel off. The maids and groundskeeper are these young black people who clearly don't seem normal by anyone's standards, race excluded. They feel like they are from the 1930s and they are just so happy to be serving these white folks. The conversations he has with her parents are very telling. Like the comment about how her dad said he would have voted for Obama a third time, or their conversation about Jesse Owens and Hitler. It's a double edged sword. He's showing his admiration for these black figures while also trying to bring down Chris's walls and show him he's accepting. Earlier, Chris asked Rose if she told her parents he was black, and she said she didn't. And Chris was upset about that. That's a legitimate thing with black people because blacks already have in their head that this may be a potential problem. Let's not surprise these people with this. Now, her dad having these talks with Chris kind of tells you everything you need to know about his thoughts on the black race. Not to say he's racist necessarily, although some would say, why bring up these topics with him to begin with? But to show he is very race aware and conscious and that he has a motive of some sort. We tell people what we want them to know. So he told him these things for a reason. Things get even weirder when her brother comes into the picture and tries to size him up with talks of sports and MMA and even challenging him to a fight. The motives become a little more clear later. I want to talk about another theme in this, which is trauma. Chris is a smoker, and Rose and her mother despise this. So much so that Rose's mother has come up with a technique to get rid of that craving of smoking through hypnotism. She taps into his trauma to control him, digging in about the death of his mother and getting into his headspace. The teacup. Oh, that teacup. We see this is obviously how she is controlling these black people through hypnotism. The way they act and the things they do. The help are some of the scariest characters in the movie. The way they speak and their mannerisms are just creepy. I'm sure she used some kind of trauma with all of these victims to control their minds. Trauma can reach the deepest, darkest depths of someone's psyche, which is an easy way to manipulate someone. There's some A1 suspense building in this film while still maintaining intrigue and curiosity. This movie makes you uncomfortable, honestly, from start to finish. It's got a dark cloud over it the whole time, and you feel and see it. Now, I've heard people refer to things happening in this movie as modern day form of slavery. And I mean, it's hard to refute that because we see some things that can back that up. They are having a party this weekend, but the party is actually where we see what's really happening here. It's not a party at all. It's an auction of black people sold to white people for various reasons. Some for their physical ability, some for sexual desires, some for artistic abilities, whatever reason it may be. This is how slaves were bought and sold back in the day. But it's illegal now, and that's where the hypnotism comes in. All these black people seem off, particularly Lakeith Stansfield character. He's dressed like a dude at a country club, married to a woman twice his age and acting very different. Because Chris knows him. Chris knows something is wrong and takes a picture of him. The flash snaps him out of his hypnosis temporarily and he yells at him to get out. And one of the best scenes in the movie and the real turning point of the film. Like I said earlier, Chris is smart and he starts to connect the dots with his boy who is dog sitting for him. Now, why would these white people want these black people's sides some free labor in reference to the help? I mean, slavery helped advance this country much quicker than it would have, but it goes deeper than that in this situation. One could ask, why would these white people even be interested in these black people? They seem to have it all: money, good life, legacy. I mean, what more could you want? This is where I think the overarching theme is in this movie comes out. The white people have a clear fascination and admiration of the black people. There are white people who think that blacks are actually superior in some ways, mostly in athletics and various forms of entertainment. Some white people are very physically attracted to darker skin. I mean, they obviously saw something in blacks long ago that made them want to use blacks as slave. Strong, tough, hardworking, despite some other stereotypes that people may think in the modern era. There is a reason that America is the way it is now. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this is every white person's opinion because it is absolutely not. A lot of white people resent black people and think they are lazy, a drain on the economy, and not to mention criminals and thugs. There are white people who feel that blacks do not contribute to the country and want them gone. But a lot of this is based in fear: fear of the unknown and fear of something people may not quite understand. Peel explores this theme with white people, and I think he wrote both lines well, showing the line between love and hate can be very thin. Now, on the other side, there are plenty of black people who feel the exact same way about white people, as I just explained how they do with the blacks. There are black people that like white people and desire them and think they are superior. And now, you can tell me I'm wrong, but don't think about your own opinion. Look at how many black people we see dating white people, seeking the acceptance of them. I mean, look at Myron Gaines from Fresh and Fit. There's plenty of black people who think that they can't get to the top without white approval. I mean, black men have been criticized for leaving black women behind when they hit a certain level of success. It seems that a lot of blacks do seek the approval and acceptance of whites, while on the other hand, resenting and fearing them from things in the past, present, and inevitably the future. In the back of a lot of black people's heads when they get into white situations is, this could go bad at any moment. One wrong thing can be said or done that can change this whole situation. But just like the whites, there are tons of black people who do not like white people and want nothing to do with them. They don't trust them or don't want to mix the races. Now it's 2025. Things aren't as bad. But let's face it, racism is very alive and kicking on both sides. Recent events and leaders have really brought certain things to light. But that doesn't mean that's everyone's attitude. And I think Peel highlighted this well, even if the movie itself doesn't make white people look the best. Because let's face it, they are the villains, but they are the modern day slave owners. So it's that way by design. Jordan told a modern day story of slavery, and it just so happens our lead does get off the plantation. Man, and some of the craziest, most fun horror stuff we've gotten ever. The way this movie plays out and the way our hero, our lead, goes about beating these white people is brilliant. It's fun, it's haunting, it's unsettling. It's everything you want in a horror movie. Because throughout the film, not much horror stuff happens. All the meat is really in the last 20 minutes. But Jordan layered this film beautifully, and Daniel Kaluuya gives us such a stellar performance that this all feels like it could really happen. I mean, what a dream role for Kaluuya. This kind of set his career off. I mean, after that, he's worked with Jordan Peele a few times, been in Black Panther, and even won himself an Oscar for the great Judas and the Black Messiah. This movie here has some of the most fun horror stuff in it that we've gotten in years. This movie kind of put the elevated horror genre on the map. I mean, we got Hereditary the next year. We ended up getting Midsummer. And I mean, we could talk about all the brilliant horror movies that have come out in the last few years. The Substance. Guys, The writing in this, some of the best writing we've had in a while. Definitely some of the best horror writing. The direction, you couldn't tell me that this was a first time director. Jordan Peele shocked the world with this. Who knew that this guy had so much talent? I mean, if he would have ended up winning Best Director or Best Screenplay, actually, I think he did win Best Screenplay. He did. But if he would have won Best Director or this would have won Best Picture, that would have made some history. But I still don't think the Oscars are quite ready for that. But 8 years later, Get Out has aged very well, and it is already considered by many one of the best, not only horror movies, but just movies of all time. Get Out is one of those movies everyone should see at least once. Looking back, man, this was lightning in a bottle. Such a fun time. One of the most talked about and discussed movies of that year. So, with all that said, I'm going to give Get Out a 9.5 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching my Get Out review. Let me know if there's a film or topic you'd like me to review. Like and subscribe, guys. Help me get to my goal of 700 subs by the spring. I appreciate it. Follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. I'll link that below. I got a podcast with my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. I'll link that below for more movie content. I'll be back next week. And don't forget the popcorn.